Thank you for having us today. I am thrilled and happy to be here with Kathy Wright and Ted Fowler and Uday Sheth, and I'm going to let them each introduce themselves. Before they do, my name is Sean Kelley, and I'm on the leadership team of the Greater Cincinnati STEM Collaborative, and we are here today to talk a little bit about what we do in the region and hopefully open ourselves to some questions from all of you. And we look forward to that time together. So with no further delays, Kathy, would you like to start? Tell us a little bit about who you are.
Sure. Hi, I'm Kathy Wright. I am the principal here at Hughes STEM High School. I've been the principal here for 8 years. I've been in Cincinnati Public Schools for 26 years. I have been working with Greater Cincinnati STEM Collaborative. Oh gosh, I don't know how many years now, but I've been a part of the advisory board committee. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thanks for being here, Kathy. Uday, would you like to go next?
Yeah, thanks, Sean. Hi, everyone. My name is Uday Sheth. Professionally, I had a long career with Procter & Gamble as a research and development manager over a 31-year career. I was involved at P&G in STEM in the community, which is how I came across the Greater Cincinnati STEM Collaborative, where I serve on the advisory board. I've been doing that for about 10 years, representing P&G. And now that I've retired, I'm just more of an at-large member of the board. I was actually the board chair for a while. So happy to be with you today.
Thanks, Uday. And Ted, last but certainly not least.
I'm Ted Fowler, retired from the University of Cincinnati, where I taught in the College of Education for decades and trained science teachers and math teachers how to teach. Earlier on in life, I was a high school teacher, teaching physics and astronomy and some history of physics. And along the way, I've interacted with a variety of different audiences, helping them to be better instructors, including business and industry and government.
That's great. Thanks, Ted. And, as you can all see, this group is quite a diverse group of STEM professionals. And we're here today really just to share what we've been working on, and we're still working. We're very much not a finished product of the Greater Cincinnati STEM Collaborative, and you'll hear that, throughout this conversation today, that we, as try as we might, we are still very much learning something every day of the week. So thanks for having us, and we'll get right to it. Ted, I'm going to go right back to you. If you could get us started on, what really is the mission of GCSC, of the STEM Collaborative? Why are we all out here doing what we're doing?
Well, the Greater Cincinnati STEM Collaborative, or GCSC, was formed out of a variety of efforts that were taking place almost 10 years ago. But the effort of GCSC is to help people, and particularly kids in school, find their way on a STEM pathway, perhaps to a STEM career. But STEM, it might be science, or it might be engineering, or it might be something that ties all of this stuff together so that math is integrated with science. But what GCSC does is basically two things. One, it knits together a bunch of different partners in the Cincinnati tri-state area, which includes Northern Kentucky, Southeast Indiana, and Southwest Ohio. And the various partners come from K-12 schools, but the partners might also be kids and families. But it might be the informals like the Museum Center or the Wave Foundation and Newport Aquarium. It might be government agencies, could be soil and water districts. It might be the Purdue Extension Service or the Ohio State Extension Service. But anybody that has some kind of a vested interest in science and math or STEM or technologies, it's a matter of trying to pull all these people together so that they can amplify each other's voice and to kind of cross-pollinate and to make a variety of offerings available, particularly to kids, and particularly kids in underserved situations. So there's a networking function.
That's a brilliant capture of what GCSE does. If we were live right now with you all, we would just walk off the stage and say, Ted just said it all, and now we're guys go on about your business. That was perfect. Thank you. Kathy, to Ted's point, so we knit together partners from all over the region. So you are the principal of a STEM high school in the Cincinnati Public School District, directly across the street from the University of Cincinnati. How do you fit into GCSE, and what is your, what do you see as your role? What do you bring to the GCSE team?
So GCSE has been able to quickly make connections for us, for our kids, to partners in the community, to activities in the community that help to further engage our kids in deeper STEM activities. It helps them to see the connectedness from what we're doing in the classroom with our project-based learning to real application out in the field. We've been able to work with GCSE since its inception. They've worked with us with the Bicycle Club, the 3D Printing Club, and all of those types of after-school activities and in-school activities, quite frankly, have helped us to tell the narrative, to help tell the story. We are a population of students, we have a large population of students who have traditionally been underserved in terms of their connectedness to resources that help them connect directly to STEM activities, directly to STEM careers, to universities and college programs that will help move them into that space. So the path has been widened because of our connection to GCSE. It's been a tremendous win for us. It's really helped us to not have to create everything for our kids. We've been in a collaboration with GCSE to get kids engaged in these activities early and often, so that they have a much richer experience while they're in high school.
Thanks, Kathy. Early and often, right? Early and often, get them. You have students from 7th through 12th grade, which, I mean, frankly, for an organization like the STEM Collaborative, and for any organization trying to engage young people, to motivate them, to want them to pursue, whether they choose a career in a STEM field or not, but to want to pursue a lifelong learning in that STEM sector, you do have to start in that 7th grade time. Uday, with Procter & Gamble, you told us that was your career. What is the P&G worldview of how do we excite young people about a career like you had at Procter?
Yeah, I would say, P&G is interested in the space for many reasons. First and foremost, we always give back to the communities that we operate in. That's a core value of the company. Partnering with an organization like GCSE gives us a strategic focus to that work. It's much better than what I call random acts of STEM. It gives us focus to orient the company's time, its talent, and its treasure through financial support of the collaborative. But the reason P&G is interested in STEM goes way beyond, being part of the community, right? It's a business essential. First, for two reasons, right? The first reason is making sure we have sufficient STEM talent in the community is a source of innovation talent for the company. P&G's major research operation in the world is here in Cincinnati. And, I don't know if your audience knows this, but there has been and continues to be a very significant STEM gap in this country. I looked up the numbers before this call. There's in this year alone, there's about 1.2 million roles available for whom there is not qualified STEM talent. And that number has been out there for a while and continues to grow. So P&G being a very innovation-driven company, people don't really understand the level of science that goes into our products and our brands. It is a business imperative to have a pipeline of talent into the future. The second reason is we really value a diverse workforce. One, we believe deeply that a diverse workforce will outperform a homogeneous workforce anytime. So there's a business imperative there. And remember, we're serving people around the world. I mean, P&G products are used by over 5 billion people on our planet right now. And we want to make sure our workforce and our research teams reflect that diversity. So there's a lot of reasons P&G is involved that go beyond our desire to support the community, but actually become business imperatives.
Right, and that's a really good point. So for our audience who doesn't know, Procter and Gamble was founded, is headquartered here in Cincinnati, which for those of us in a STEM organization, we are thrilled that they're here, and they are woven into the fabric of this community. It's pretty difficult to be involved in this community and not know someone very closely who has either worked there or does work there or somehow is in an industry that's related to Procter and Gamble. So it is an enormous influence. I can't say that too many times on the region and on our economy, frankly. So why I love the panel that we have assembled here today is because you really have the multiple stages of where a GCSE fits in. And for those of you listening, you need all of these partners. If you don't have that employer partner who is looking for a motivated population who wants to work for that company, you're not going to stay in that community long. If you are a high school principal, you need excited kids who come into your building, and then your aim is to build on that excitement, right? And have it grow over their time with you, and to send them to the next level, which is TED, and actually many of you watching this, TED at the university level. So TED, you sit at UC, and you kind of sit between Uday and Kathy in some respects, right? Because you are trying to build a bridge from the students at Hughes to your work at UC, and then create another opportunity bridge from UC to the world of Uday and Procter and Gamble and all the other hundreds of companies in our community. So STEM Collaborative is housed at University of Cincinnati, but how does that work as far as where you see the larger university having a role in that and playing a big part in how we motivate those young people?
We're making it sound like it's pretty easy to get these kids going on a STEM pathway or any kind of a pathway. It would be nice to believe that the kids are excited to jump on that bus and get off at Hughes High School or any high school or middle school or elementary school. They may not be all that excited about the school day in front of them. And it's difficult to get people's attention, and it's difficult to get kids engaged in learning about science. And so by having a variety of partners that represent a variety of entities and represent the community as a whole, there's perhaps a better chance of making connections with kids. And so at the university, we do our university things. We do research. But then how do we try to have some kind of a connection with kids, and perhaps some direct connection with kids? And that's where GCSE comes in, or an organization like GCSE to act as a bridge to keep the whole enterprise moving along in some way or other.
So, Kathy, Ted just brought up a great point. So, GCSE is one of the partners that you have at Hughes. But can you give us an example? I'm thinking on the IT front, for example. How does Hughes and UC connect directly around getting more of your students involved in an IT field?
What we found early on is that we can do a lot of things to try to help motivate kids GCSE has been really phenomenal partner in helping us do that. The university has been a really good partner in doing that. But even bigger piece was help getting them to believe that they could be a part of it. So experiencing success early and often was what we found we needed to ensure that we were doing with all of our partners. UC has been a partner from the beginning and really helped us with that issue. And specifically for UCIT, the question was, how can we get more young people who have the motivation, who've had these experiences with GCSE and others, to get them believing and being a part of and committing to going into IT. I think the number that I last heard was there were about 2,000 persistently vacant IT jobs in the pipeline in Southwest Ohio. And I just so happen to have about 1,000 kids. So I'm hoping I can fill half of that pipeline, right? But how do I—
So problem solved, right? We're
Yeah.
set.
Why not? Right. But doing that is more than a notion. And it does take a huge community lift to ensure that those students, again, have the access, they have that we can build into them the motivation by giving them these connected experiences through GCSE and through the university. And then also just building up in that belief in them that they can actually be a part of something greater. And so we were able to leverage the relationship with the university to start UCIT. So our students starting in grade 9 start off with the first fundamental course of information technology through the university, and all of our 9th graders take that. And as they move through and go up in their grades, the grade levels, there is a process for application to go into the deeper program of UCIT. So every year we have a cohort of about 25 to 30 sophomores who begin their journey as a sophomore at Hughes, but a freshman at the University of Cincinnati. And they take their freshman year over the course of 3 years. And when they exit here, they have a high school diploma and their first year of UCIT program completed. The pathway then continues throughout the summer, and they start as a sophomore at the university. It's been an amazing journey for us, but the get is for the kids, right? The real learning, the real opportunity has grown for our young people to save on tuition costs, right? You save a year of tuition by doing this program. You get connected very quickly to people in the community who will offer you job shadows and internships. Again, trying to build into that motivation and belief system. That's the backbone, we believe, of any successful student. So it's been wonderful for us. We're on year 3 of the program, and so we're really excited about that.
So Uday, and I know you weren't directly in IT at Proctor, but could you explain in your area of Proctor, tell us a little bit about what you did, but then how do you draw young people, whether they're from Hughes or any high school in the region, or I mean, frankly, the world, because it's Procter & Gamble. How do you go about drawing young people to what you do and getting them early, kind of getting the, pardon the phrase, but like getting your hooks into them early to get them excited about this is what we do every day. We're the team that creates Swiffer that makes at least my cleaning of the house easier, right? I mean, so like, how do you motivate kids to do that?
Sean, in response to that, I would say first, maybe I'll take a second to explain what I did at Procter & Gamble. I mean, I was in research and development. That's the part of P&G that's innovating on our products, our technologies, and our brand portfolio. That can be evolutionary innovation, the things that you may see as new and improved versions of products that or it could be new to the world, disruptive technologies and products, things like Swiffer, Tide Pods, Bluetooth connected toothbrushes that have now been introduced by Oral-B. I mean, I could spend an hour just explaining examples, but that's what we need. And honestly, we draw primarily top talent out of the universities around the country and around the world, engineers, scientists. We're bringing more and more associate degree researchers in that are like working in our labs at the bench, prototyping the innovation. So we hire a whole mix, and we have a huge intern program and co-op program where we have talent coming in throughout the year and especially in the summer. One, to get some exposure to careers at Procter & Gamble, because we're competing with many other companies for this scarce talent, but also because we get an early look at these students around who would have really good fit and potential in the company. What we have realized is that when it comes to high quality, diverse talent, women, African American, Hispanic specifically, we need to kind of, those resources are very much in demand in industry. So we need to give exposure to the company and get exposure to the individual even earlier. So we do organize informally lots of groups of high school kids coming into the labs, giving talks. For many of them, they have no idea what we do at P&G. They have no idea what P&G is. And when you can bring them in and show them something tangible that we're working on, it sparks the curiosity and it sparks the interest. One of the things that a quote I often share is from Justice Sotomayor, role models confirm possibility. So some of these kids, if you ask them what they want to grow up, they tell you what they see. It may be an athlete because they see that on TV. It may be a teacher if they got a member of the family in teaching. They may not immediately go to, I want to do research for Procter & Gamble, right? But once they meet somebody, especially somebody that looks like them, a person of color or a woman, they may say, well, that could be me. That is something I'm kind of interested in. And that sparks them at the high school level, at the university level to kind of get in and stay in the program.
Yeah, and to that point, what you said is so important. And I know I've seen it happen actively in person in Kathy's building, because when you see a young person, and I'm not, it may have been, I don't want to say a name because I'm going to get it wrong, but I remember one time in particular, and it was a fellow P&G employee who had worked on Olay, and Olay, that product is everywhere, and they had a real. There was an Olay person, and then there was a deodorant person, and you could see the young people kind of come to life because they realize, oh, that's in my cabinet at home. I use that thing every day. And this woman standing in front of me actually helped develop the science around that. And I mean, that's something that's real.
If I can share an example just to build upon that, we had a group of very talented African-American women, almost all PhD chemists and scientists. So very, very high performing, highly capable group. And they observed that P&G did not have a very good hair care product for ethnic hair, for the coarse hair that African-American women have. And, we kind of said, well, you're scientists, like, stop complaining about it. Here's some money, here's some time, come up with something you think is better. And over the course of a couple of years, this team came together and they created what we now know as Pantene Gold Series, which is a line of products specifically designed for that audience. And we've put some of these women in front of young women, young African-American women, and I've never seen people so inspired. Like, not only is there some people that look like me that are PhDs, scientists, but they actually have the authority to go and create a new product, and it's now being sold around the country. And that could be me, right? And I always follow like, well, what problem do you have in your life that a new product solution could satisfy? And what are you waiting for? Like, let's get out there and start inventing, start creating something. It may not be perfect from the first go, but that's part of the scientific process, is the experimentation process. And if you can spark a kid to that, it's really boundless what they can achieve.
Okay, I'm going to stick with you for a second, Uday, because you just inspire me. I was going to come back to this later, but when you just said, what's the problem you want to solve? Yeah. So there's a very specific program that the STEM, all of the programs that the STEM Collaborative does. We talk about how do we solve problems. That's what all of us who are interested in STEM, we're trying to solve a problem every day. But one of the big motivating factors around one of our specific clubs, 3D Printing Club, is all based around, to the young people, to those middle schoolers across our region, is, come up with a problem and then try to solve it in this 3D Printing Club. So now I said all that, and so you don't have to go with my answer, but I was going to ask you, what is one of the most proud things that you have been a part of since your involvement, which has been so long with GCSE? What are one of the things that make you most proud?
Well, I think that's there's a lot of things. I mean, I just to serve and be part of this collaborative, and I try to bring together and organize disparate community efforts, and I think the collaborative is the platform to do that here in our area. I mean, I spent my last few months at P&G working on P&G's approach to STEM. Actually, I got paid to do that. I did some mapping of what's going on STEM in the community. There are hundreds of small organizations doing good in their parts of the world, points of light, but they're really disconnected from something bigger. And the collaborative offers them an opportunity to scale and be part of. The 3D Printers Club, I mean, that was serendipity. I had my son was involved in 3D printing, and he was involved in a venture that was doing 3D printing in an educational setting. What I liked about it is there's two things I'll call out. First, I think 3D printing and this whole roster of new to the world scientific arenas, robotics, artificial intelligence, additive manufacturing, which is really the field of science that describes 3D printing. I call that STEM 2.0. We tend to focus a lot on STEM 1.0, learn the math, learn the chemistry, learn the biology, and that's always going to be there. That's foundational. But there is now, to succeed in the workforce, this STEM 2.0 suite of skills that is really important for students to get on, right? And I was really interested to bring some of that into the programming for GCSE. The second thing is 3D printing and some of the other programs like the STEM bike clubs and others, they're hands-on, right? I'm telling you, if you go and talk to a kid about melting points and plastic resins, their eyes will glaze over in like 30 seconds, probably like you guys are doing right now. But if you talk about 3D printing as a way to kind of see a problem, envision a solution, and then actually prototype it right there and see it print out, just like a printed sheet of paper, but now you're printing in 3 dimensions. That's very cool. The cool factor is very high. The interest level is very high. And it allows you a gateway to then talk about, well, how's that thing working? Well, it's melting the resin and it's laying it on track by track. And you have to have a program that slices the file and allows it to do that. You can get into those boring concepts of STEM 2.0 through something really exciting, which is like, look at this thing come to life. So I give you those kind of models because I think we can envision that in many different areas. One last point. I mean, the folks at Tata Consulting, they're a strategic partner in the STEM Collaborative. They're an IT consulting firm. They do a huge summer program every year, and one of their activities is drone racing, right? So again, there's another STEM 2.0 technology. If you think about drones, well, that's a thing now, right? The kids build and then race drones. I don't know a kid that wouldn't want to do that. And in doing so, they're learning aerodynamics, they're learning about putting stuff together, they're learning about coding, all of the skills that are going to be necessary for them to succeed in the future. So lots of examples out there like that.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you brought up the point of Tata. So Kathy, you talked about the early IT program that you do in conjunction with the University of Cincinnati. And listening to Uday talk about the 3D Printers Club. So for the last several years, the 3D Printers Club Showcase has been hosted on UC's campus, which is hundreds and hundreds of middle school students from all across the region, from Indiana, Kentucky, Southwest Ohio, coming together to kind of show off what they've created over the 8-week program, at their home school. They kind of bring their best thing to the showcase. So they come with a little bit of pride, right? And show the other students, their peers from across the region working on things. But then they also learn from professionals from across our region. So you've got that STEM showcase. In the past, we've also, Greenlight for Girls has been hosted on UC's campus. And again, that's hundreds of young women coming to UC's campus to learn from scientists and engineers, all female, who are already doing that, who look just like these young women and can inspire them. So all of those examples tie you to a UC and give your students opportunities. What else does a UC or folks who are associated with UC or frankly, any university around the world, what else do they need to know about what your students at Hughes STEM and schools like yours around the country, what else do they need to know to inspire your students?
Well, I think probably the biggest thing is to understand that together we really can open a lot of doors for our young people. I said earlier that, in many cases, I represent a population of students that's been historically underrepresented in spaces. So when GCSE, when UC, when Proctor, when they make an intentional touch or reach out to work with our students and to show them the opportunities and the possibilities, it deeply matters. It changes the trajectory for that student. It represents new possibilities that may not have been presented before. Uday was talking about like role models. I can't even really quantify for you like what it actually means for young people to really see role models who are doing really big, important things, cool things and they're leveraging what they've learned from their STEM backgrounds to really do this work. There's been so much conversation recently, right, about access to resources, implicit bias, the messaging that kids are getting, what role models do, what institutions do when they really come into our spaces and work with our kids, is they kind of break that cycle of deficit thinking about what the students can accomplish and what they could actually be. It's critically important that kids see that they understand that they have a role in it and that they feel welcomed by our partners. UC has been a phenomenal partner. Procter & Gamble has been a phenomenal partner. And GCSE, of course, has been a partner that they've been incredibly intentional about making sure that all of these students really matter, understand that they matter, and the roles that they can play for the future of Southwest Ohio. You were talking about like the 3D printing, and it made me think about how we use that here, right? So the middle school program for GCSE with the 3D printing is amazing, but I've got 7th and 8th graders, right? And so we were trying to figure out like, what else could they do? And the kids came up with this themselves. They went and made, with the help of some UC students, Bearcat buddies, they learned how to make chess pieces. And we have all of these chess boards and chess pieces, and kids are learning how to play chess, right? And so I never would have thought of that, but because we had near peers from UC coming in and talking to kids about like how to use the technology, they were able to make something that's fun. Chess is an incredible game. I watched all of Queen's Gambit. But it's something that, like, you know what I mean? It's just something that I wouldn't have necessarily thought of as a way to leverage that learning. So it creates just an opportunity for a next level conversation to happen with young people that we may have missed in traditional schooling.
Well, and I think part of that, right, is because if you give young people the room, the space, the time to come up with some ideas, throw a little inspiration in there and give them some ideas, but then let them run with it, right? Get all of us out of the room and let them actually take off with that. So Ted, you're sitting there listening to Uday, you're listening to Kathy, and again, whether you are or not, I've placed you now officially between those two. So you are that link, you are the bridge, you are the university system that's going to connect Kathy's world to Uday's world. So listening to both of them and knowing your colleagues at the university here, at universities across the world, we've, for those of us on, Uday and Kathy, we know Ted's wisdom. We hear it daily. We hear it. Ted's forgotten more than I've ever known about this field. So if you were going to give 2 bits of information to the employer side of the equation, to the companies out there in the world, and then to the high school side who are feeding kids up to your world. What would you say to both of them? If Ted ruled the world, what would you say to both of them?
Well, I'd only repeat some things that they've already said. Some of these things sound great, and Kathy talks about the early IT program, and it only takes 6 years to drive these kids through this program so that they become an IT professional. Things don't happen overnight. And as Uday talked about the 3D Printers Club, that's an opportunity. Same way with the co-op experiences at P&G. It's an opportunity to engage kids, young people, and then see what happens and give opportunities for lots of deeper conversations that can take place. The STEM Bicycle Club is one of the first things that we had pulled together. We knew that we weren't going to be able to put up public service announcements and solve all the world's problems. It's a matter of engaging students in some meaningful way, allowing them to explore, and then allowing there to be conversations where new ideas are invented and things are pulled together. So in the STEM Bike Club or the 3D Printer Club, we intentionally chose the after school time as an entree into schools without competition with all of the regular standards and everything else that takes place in school, but with the hope that whatever it is that happens after school might be able to migrate into school. But on the STEM Bike Club, each kid gets a bike. It's a Walmart bike. It costs $110. And then they, over a period of 10 weeks, methodically take apart each system that's in that bike and put it back together again. Now, we target this for kids that this might really make a difference for them, and allow teachers to select kids that are going to benefit from this kind of an experience. But in that 10 weeks, there's also mentors that show up from P&G or GE Jet Engines or other companies or community organizations that work side by side with those kids. And a lot of these people are not bicycle experts, and so that they learn along with the kids about how you adjust the gearing mechanism on a bike. But then it opens up, because you've engaged and kids are exploring things, it opens up the conversations to, so did you go to college? Or, this is really neat that you can move these chains around and it gets easier to pedal the bicycle, or faster as you pedal the bicycle, and opens up lots of opportunities to introduce lots of science, the processes of science, the skills of science, the process of engineering, mathematical thinking. All of these different kinds of things get hung on some kind of an activity, but it's a matter of engaging kids in some way early on.
Yeah, and I think you perfectly kind of brought together our mantra as we're developing these programs and going out to the community, is that hands-on, minds engaged, which is kind of the when Mary Adams, who's our executive director, when she sends us out into the world, it's with that kind of leading the charge to go out there and inspire families, inspire young people, hands-on, minds engaged. Because when you get kids, and frankly, adults, if you ever watch these programs, the adults sometimes are just as engaged, if not more so than the kids. when you get them hands-on minds engaged and they start kind of working together, solving some problems together, then the conversations that, that Ted's talking about, it's much easier to have that conversation when you're in something together, right? When you're sharing an experience, rather than, the four of us showing up and standing in front of us, a classroom of students, and saying, here's what we think is the best way for you to operate your lives over the next 4 years. I mean, who does that excite? That doesn't excite anyone. But if you get them doing something, right? And if you grab a kid in Kathy's building and you put that student with Uday and his team at P&G, and you actually get them working together, then you can have that. And it's a genuine conversation that Ted's talking about. Our audience today, for all of you watching this, we're also going to have a chance where you will be able to ask all of these folks questions. So, Kathy and Uday and Ted will be available for live questions. So be thinking about those. But, in maybe some of our last time here, just if the three of you could think about our audience and what are the 1 to 2 things you would say to them about the world that you're in. So the university, the employer, and the school building. Give them 1 or 2 bits of what you've learned and what they need to know moving forward in order to engage with that audience. Uday, you want to go? You look ready to go.
Yeah, I have like 10 things, but I'll try and get it down to 2. I think what I've learned in my time with the collaborative and my time studying this somewhat deeply at P&G, this STEM problem has been around for decades, right? And a lot of resources, a lot of money has been thrown at it by the government, by industry, by education organizations, and we still have the gap. So one thing I've learned, and which is what I love about the collaborative, is you need to build an ecosystem. No one entity is going to solve this on their own. So bringing together all stakeholders who can look at this problem with their unique lenses, come together, solve collaboratively, I think is super important. And when I diagnose the problem, and as a scientist, I always say we spend way too much time on the solution and not enough time on the problem. So if I could speak for a minute about the problem, I had distilled it down to 4 Ps. I know Ted has heard this too many times, but these are what we need to spark with the students that we're trying to serve, right? The first is to spark some passion, the first P, like get them interested in science. Like don't give them rote problems to solve. That's boring. Do bike clubs, do 3D printing, give them, make them do chess pieces or whatever, right? It sparks the interest. And if you've ever been around little kids, they're so curious, they're so interested, and somehow we drive that out of them in middle school. And I don't know why. That's part of the problem. So passion is one. Second is proficiency, right? Work on building competency in the sciences, whether that's STEM 1.0 or STEM 2.0. Third is encourage pursuit, right? Are these kids taking science classes in high school? Are they going for the AP or the IB courseworks, the more advanced courses if they're capable of it? Are they pursuing scientific degree tracks in university, whether that's in a 2 or a 4-year setting? So pursuing is the third P. And the final one is persisting, right? In the pipeline of students from middle school to finishing college, 79% that start with an idea in STEM drop out. Not drop out of school, but they drop out of STEM into some other non-scientific field. And for some, that's fine. But for many, we need to understand why that's happening. It's happening disproportionately for women and for people of color, right? And that's one of the reasons why we have a STEM gap. So how do we address persistence challenges? So I would ask you to think about a framework of those 4 Ps. And then how do you bring an ecosystem of different stakeholders together that can collaborate to move the ball forward at every opportunity?
That's great. Thank you. Kathy, what would you say? What would you say to our audience?
Well, I love everything that what Uday just shared, because that's exactly it. What I would add though is being very intentional. Our students, young people, adolescents are they really thrive off relationship, and they love when people partners come in and they're really intentional about the value add. They're very genuine about wanting to be a part of their learning, being a part of their ecosystem. And students really are drawn to people who show up that way. I would also say that we need to recognize that they're adolescents. They're young people, and they're being flooded with information, things that run contrary to STEM opportunities, the bright and shiny things and like jazz up adolescents, right? So just recognizing that that is just, part of the phase that they're in when they're in school, and that sometimes it may not seem as if you're making any inroads there. But I guarantee you, if you show up as a genuine person who wants to really add value, and you're helping them to be motivated and to have belief in themselves regarding the work, they will definitely lean in and be more apt to listen to everything that you have to share. And if I can, I want to add another P. I would ask that you make sure that the space that you're in gives permission for students to dream. I think, and to experiment, to dream. I think in many cases, especially with COVID and the aftermath of that, kids have felt kind of like closed in. And we have to create spaces where it's okay for them to fail and to learn from those failings, to succeed and to grow from those. We really want to just make sure that they know that the spaces that we're creating for them are safe and that they have permission to be their best selves.
That's fantastic. And actually, I love that added P. I think, that's the first time that we've brought up the COVID situation that we're in. And I mean, and ironically, the fact that we're all doing this in separate places remotely. So that I'm glad you brought that up. That does bring some reality to the fact that it's March 9th of 2021. And for many of us, we're coming on literally the 1-year anniversary of when we all went to this type of world. So thank you for bringing that, Kathy, that reality to the table, because frankly, for all of us, for those of you watching, for those of us who are here, that reality is going to impact every single thing that we do for some years to come. I don't know if we know yet just how long that will impact us. All right, Ted, so the floor is yours. What would you say to our audience?
Well, playing off of what Kathy said about being intentional, I think that you have to be intentional in this whole process of getting a kid to understand, whether they're understanding mathematics or science or engineering or the wide range of technologies that they're likely to engage in. And being intentional is what you have to do in order to get this learning to take place. And so I've got 4 E's. You have to engage students in some way or other. This is not a matter of blowing in and giving a lecture and now everybody's going to understand, but engage in something that is of some interest, something that might just happen to be exciting. And then the second E is to explore. And this is going to take time, whether it's a bicycle club or a 3D printer club or any other kind of activity like gardening or whatever. There has to be time to explore. And from that, kids need to be encouraged to explain what it is that they're learning, to put together bits and pieces, not just telling kids what it is that they have learned or they should be learning, but they have to invent this knowledge for themselves. And then they have to, with the 4th E, is to elaborate. They need to be able to take these ideas and apply them to new situations and build upon what it is that they've learned. So those are my 4 E's to match the 5 P's.
Nice.
So we've got an alphabet for all of you out there. We're the STEM alphabet that only has 2 letters. I like that. So Ted, in all of the years that we've been working together, all of the years that you've been involved with the GCSC, have we gotten better? I mean, what have we learned along the way?
What we've learned is it's only going to take another 20 years, and maybe we will accomplish something. I think that what I appreciate most is the working together of the variety of partners. And the toughest partner for us in education, particularly in K-12 schools, to engage with, I think, is business, because it's unattainable and those people are busy. And well, maybe I can ask them for money, but that's not it. It's to ask for the talent. It's to ask for the involvement. And those people that are in business, they're not too much different than the people working over at NIOSH or CDC in a government program or an agency. And there are lots of partners out there. And that's what it is that I most appreciate out of these 10 years.
Yeah, that's a great point. It really does take, I mean, if you look at, and I encourage all of you watching this to go to our greatercincystem.org website to check it out, look at the partners. And if you look at our advisory council, you know, as part of the leadership team, and I'm looking at Uday and Kathy, we have just a phenomenal advisory council, and it has been for years. It's such a mix of this community and this region. And to Ted's point, that's exactly what it needs to be, because whether it's a government official, if it's someone in the county, the city, the state, I mean, the federal government, it doesn't matter, or whether, and it's one of their entities, you know, NIOSH, or, you know, we have the EPA here for those who are from Cincinnati, or whether it's the private employer world of Procter & Gamble and Kroger and Duke and 8451 and Tata and all of the other amazing partners that we have at the table, or whether it's the foundations. We have those as well, because you need, you know, frankly, as an organization, and we haven't really covered that yet with all of you, but the only way we're able to do the work that we all do, so we all bring our separate, you know, skills and talents to this, but we couldn't do it if we didn't have the Hale Foundation. Frankly, if we didn't have all of the other foundation partners that are here. And to be honest, we couldn't do it without the University of Cincinnati. With all of the backbone support that Hale and UC and Procter & Gamble and Duke Energy and so many other partners have given us over the years, you just can't do this work. You can't stay at it. And frankly, you know, since this is a STEM conversation, we couldn't have made all of the mistakes that we've made and then gotten up and changed it and made it better and then tried it again. We couldn't have done that without that core support with partners at the Museum Center who help us with programming and so many others in this region. That's been a big part of it. Uday, what do you think we've learned over this decade together?
Yeah, I would say, you know, just building on it, I think what we've learned is how to bring people together and create scale. You know, when we started, it was a pretty loose band of a few folks. We were reaching only a few students in the area. You know, GCSC has put together some really neat, innovative programming, and we've brought together partners. You've mentioned, you know, Museum Center, iSpace, Northern Kentucky, and collectively, and I get this number wrong all the time, I mean, collectively across the partners and the core programs of the GCSC, we reach, I don't know, like 50,000 kids in the region, which is great, and it's not enough. So reaching more kids, going deeper with them, you know, scaffolding experience upon experience so that we build a path for each individual is great. But I mean, I look back over 10 years where we started to where we are. It's very impressive. So I just hope to continue that into the future. And Sean, thanks for hosting us and steering the discussion. I think you've done a masterful job. I mean, I will echo one last thing. I was pretty focused on P&G for many years, building my career, doing the work that I was required to do. But I will tell you, the number of doors in the community that opened up to me once I got involved in the collaborative, I had no idea organizations nor people like the people that I've met existed. It's been hugely rewarding for me personally. I mean, Sean, I would have never met you or Ted or Kathy or any of you. And so I think it allows me to then orient the resources of a major company to support. And I know that I can say, every one of us can say that, right? So that is the most powerful thing I think the collaborative is bringing into the community. For those of you not in Cincinnati, I do want to mention there are STEM ecosystems all around the country, right? So you can reach out to Melissa or any of the other conference organizers, and we can put you in touch with people in your area if you're interested to go deeper.
Yeah, and that's a great, I'm glad you said that, Uday, because that's a great point. We will have a live question session with all of you, for those of you who want to. And, humbly, I suggest that you do participate, because this is a fun group. You could tell, I mean, I could talk to this crowd for the rest of the day. We do have a time limit, but this is a fun group. Kathy, any last bits from you before we say goodbye today, and then just prepare for our live session with the crowd?
Sure. I would just echo what was shared earlier and add that traditional education can't do it alone. We do not have the capacity. We don't have the human capital. We don't have the resources or the finances to do some of the outstanding work that happens when you are in a real, true partnership with your community members, whether it be Proctor or UC or GCSC. They have been an outstanding value add to our community of learners, to all of Cincinnati Public Schools. They've been a tremendous value add. Again, that we just, traditional education can't do it alone. And so I really want to thank GCSC, thank UC, thank Procter & Gamble for all of their hard work. I know that you have changed lives. I've seen it. I've seen how students who participated in the bicycle club went into our engineering program and learned how to build electric cars and race them at Indy for Speedway, whatever you call that, the 500 or something like that. But they did that, right? They built cars, but it was because of those early experiences with them in the bicycle club and the connections that they made through the engineering program to UC's College of Engineering, to Cincinnati State's College of Engineering, or all of their engineering programs. So it's been a tremendous value add, and I would just encourage all of our listeners to really get involved, figure out ways to tutor or mentor or otherwise be involved in the lives of the young people who we need to really step into this pipeline and be prepared, motivated, and welcomed into spaces that traditionally have not necessarily been open to them.
Thank you, Kathy. Those are great. Those are great final thoughts. Another important component of the Greater Cincinnati STEM Collaborative is that, as I believe I said earlier, so we are stationed in Southwest Ohio is our hub. But for anyone who knows the geography, if you're not from this area, if you know the geography of Cincinnati, Ohio, you know that we are minutes from Kentucky and we are minutes from Indiana. So when you operate in the Greater Cincinnati region, you really have to have three hats on. I mean, you have to have knowledge of what goes on in Frankfort, Kentucky. You have to have knowledge of what goes on in Indianapolis, Indiana. And then for those of us in Ohio, you have to know what's going on in Columbus. We don't exist just in this city. So if we didn't have Northern Kentucky University or Thomas More or Gateway as higher ed partners, we couldn't do what we do. We have Ivy Tech in Indiana, and Ted, who is coming to you live today from Southeastern Indiana, he kind of wears our GCSC hat down there. And then all of our partners, and Kathy just mentioned Cincinnati State, we couldn't do what we do without Cincinnati State, without the University of Cincinnati. And these partners, it was... trying to remember his name, GE Aviation, though I'll never forget this quote. This was years ago. And Karen Chester, who's on our advisory board, who's the superintendent of Fort Thomas Schools, had been the deputy superintendent for years at Boone County Schools in Kentucky. She still quotes it to the day, but GE Aviation would always say, listen, yeah, we're based in Evendale, Ohio, where, that's where people come to work, but our employees live all over. They live in Kentucky, they live in Indiana, they live in Ohio. We really don't care where they live, as long as they love coming to work and they're qualified to do their jobs. So as GCSC, and for those of you who do live in communities like ours, where we share borders, you have to be able to work with all of those entities. You can't say, oh, well, this is a Cincinnati group, or this is a Northern Kentucky group, or this is a Southeastern Indiana group. If we don't all work together, then we're truly not building up that ecosystem of STEM talent that we need to move this region forward. So thank you for your time today. We look forward to engaging with all of you live at the end of April. I think I'm saying that right, but I'm sure there's detail probably flashing on the screen as I'm saying this that's correcting me or confirming me, one or the other. And thank you for your time. Uday, Kathy, Ted, thank you for being here. This has been a lot of fun. It's always good to spend time with you guys.